Welcome back to the Compound Podcast. This is episode 240 of the Compound Podcast, presented by Parse Rum. Our friends at Parse, your friends at Parse. Go to Binny's, get your Parse. I know we all had a ton of Parse over the holidays. Still cold. 40 degrees in Austin. It's a good night for some Parse, I'll tell you that.
If you're saying 40 degrees is cold, you're disgusting.
It's frigid. It's frigid here.
Did you golf today?
No.
Are you lying?
No. The golf course is legit closed for the whole week. They sent out an email. They were like, we're done. Like,
you know what's funny? You know what the funniest part about that is, Ian? Your golf course closes down at 40. We had a golf course around here open up from the 27th to the 31st because it was above 40 degrees. We had a golf course out here in December. That's how we do it. You wouldn't know.
Yeah, we're going the opposite way here. It's like, don't even think about showing your face until it gets over 50.
That's crazy. Grow up. Toughen up a little bit.
People got their plants covered. We got coverings all over everything. I don't even know if people can go to school in this.
I think
sunny. It looks beautiful out. It looks legitimately beautiful out. It's just cold.
No snow in sight, but yeah.
No.
You're struggling.
Frigid. Okay. So this is officially, we're just going to address the elephant. This is officially our first episode without Zack.
I'm sad.
He's sad. We're sad. We did schedule this episode in our group chat that Zack is still a part of, and I think it hit him. I think it hit him today that he's not going to get to participate.
I purposely did that. I was like, let me just remind him what he's missing out on here, you know? And he did send the gif of Squidward looking out the window when all Patrick and SpongeBob are running around the neighborhood having fun. So
he told me after last week, as soon as we stopped recording, it hit him. He's like, did I mess up? Like, should I come back? I was like, you know what, man, we'll take you back anytime. Like, this isn't like oh no, like you can never come back. Like, if you change your mind in a month, like, happily welcome back.
The door's always open.
You know what? We shouldn't give him that. You know, he can't just quit on us and come back. We shouldn't just give him, what are we going to give him, just a free pass?
I do want to say, I know we're going to get into it, but the Squidward gif made me think of it. Friday before like the rehearsal dinner and all that, we're sitting in his suite, just like hanging out. The guys hanging out, having some drinks. He puts SpongeBob on TV and he goes, does it get better than this? Does it get any better than this? I was like, we could put anything else on. He's like, no, this is what I want.
I'm going to watch SpongeBob before his wedding.
Yeah, that's what he wanted. Fired him up. That's what he needed to calm down.
We did all just get back from Zack's wedding in beautiful Connecticut. What a blast that was.
Well, I haven't recovered yet, but what a treat. What an absolute treat that was. Did he give you a hug when he first saw you?
Yeah.
Okay.
In his well, I saw him in the hotel, gave him a hug, and then I saw him at the welcome party in his white turtleneck. Good luck with the white turtleneck.
He looked good in it.
It was an awesome ceremony, and it was really cool it was just cool to see Zack and his whole family and the brothers. You know, we've talked so much over the years about his brothers and everything, and just seeing them and having them give their speeches and everything, it was really cool.
I got two things here. One, I do agree. Zack, I will say Zack got emotional. I was not sure if Zack was going to be the kind of guy that was going to get emotional when Fallon came down the aisle. He was, credit to him. And it was a wedding where you felt how much love was in that room for those two people. Everyone in that room just loves those two people. And that was really cool. Second thing, are we going to address some of the speeches? They were coming at Zack a little bit. Dakota, in fact, informed us before maybe the joke of the night was told.
I didn't say what the joke was. I just said you're going to want to hear Brady's opening line.
No, you said there's a pop coming, which I liked. This is not the way anyone's ever described anything to me. You're like, there's a pop coming. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I'm ready to find out.
Do you ever watch comedy? Like, that's what, like, in comedy shows, like, if you make a good joke, like, you get a good pop from the crowd. Like, you get that big, like, everyone laughs.
I understood it immediately. I just never heard.
You just said you didn't know what a pop was.
No. I said to you, I had not heard anyone describe it to me that way. You know, I didn't know we were at like the Comedy Cellar. I didn't realize it was among comedians, and you guys were really punching up those speeches. There was a lot of work done on Avery's and Brady's speeches over that day. Is what my impression was.
Well, the funniest part is it started back at like the bachelor party, but then on the shuttle ride over to the venue Saturday, we're all like all the groomsmen are on the bus. And Jason Foley, friend of the pod, Foles, who Ian didn't recognize when he first saw him, but we'll get into that later. No big deal. Didn't recognize guests of the pod. Tough look. And Mark Huberman, one of our other friends, would just keep saying like the most cliche things ever. Like, just to make fun of Avery and Brady. They're like, hi, everyone, I'm Avery, the middle brother, if you can't tell. They're like, Brady's like, oh, I've always been the little brother to Zack, but I'll always look up to you. Like, just stuff like that. So they were throwing out all these cliches. And randomly on the bus, Brady thought of it himself. He didn't have this in his speech. And he goes, I think like this would be a great line. Like, oh, my speech will be shorter than Zack's time on the Red Sox. And we all lost it when he said it on the bus. And Zack didn't hear it because he was at the front of the bus. So we were like, dude, like you have to put that in there. So he put it in there. And the funniest part is like, he was looking over at all of us before he said it because he knew like we were going to love it. And it got the double pop. It got the laughter, like pause, more laughter again. And I was like, that crushed Brady.
I think there was a reaction to see if what Zack's reaction was going to be. And once people saw that Zack also loved the joke, then everyone was allowed to be on board with it.
It was also, that was his opening.
Yeah.
Which made
that was like the second line of his speech.
Yeah. Made it 10 times better.
And it was perfect. Like Ian, you said, seeing the brothers, like I know them like a little better than you guys, obviously, but like you guys know them a little bit. It was perfect of how they are with each other. Like Avery's was more sentimental, like not super serious, but a little more like nicer and like, love you, Zack. Brady's was literally Brady just making fun of Zack for like 3 minutes. That's all. He never said a nice thing. He just made fun of him for 3 minutes. And I was like, that's exactly how I thought these would go.
It was pretty perfect.
When I saw Brady, I was like, that was perfect, Brady. Brady. I mean, they obviously both speeches were great, but we're also a little down on Avery since he didn't call in. So like, we let him know that, you know, like, listen, we let him know that Fallon was not happy. Bev was not happy with that decision. So let the bride down too.
It's tough, but it was a lot of fun the whole weekend.
The whole weekend was great. We did get to see some friends of the pod. Scotty F got to spend some time with Scotty F for us, which was great.
Which we need to tell a quick Scotty story. We're on the dance floor and Zack has these light up, like, I don't even know what you call them, like these little styrofoam things that light up.
They're like batons.
Yeah, little batons. And there's like battery packs, obviously, at the bottom where like you turn it on and off. And we're swinging him around on the dance floor. His wife goes to hit him in the head with it, accidentally does it with the battery end, cuts his forehead, and he's literally bleeding from the forehead on the dance floor. And he had to go like get a Band-Aid. It was incredible. He came back with a Band-Aid and I lost it. I was like, this guy is bleeding from the forehead on the dance floor.
Bandage directly on the forehead.
Yeah.
And the funniest part is if I asked you before the weekend started, if you said that story but didn't ascribe a name to it and you had to guess, everyone would have guessed Scott. It's the most on-brand thing for Scott to do. He was just truly in prime Scott form the whole weekend. And I'm one of my favorite human beings alive. Always shout out to Scott. Also, shout out to Julie, Ian's wife. Got to spend a lot of time with her, fellow Redbird. Big fan of her. And Fallon at one point had the entire party chanting her name as she was wearing like a Mexican wrestling mask and was just crushing on the dance floor. And truly a spectacle like I've never seen. One of the greatest, just like one person dance parties to be observed. Really good wedding. Big fan.
I don't think I was out there for that. I don't
know. Neither of you guys were there for that.
I have never, and this is close your ears, kids. This is what adults do at weddings. I had a couple alcoholic beverages. I forgot a lot that happened Saturday. Like we were talking beforehand about a few things. And I was like, that was gone from my mind until you said it. And I was like, oh, that's right. I did do that. So it was a good time. It was a good time. Sunday was a long day. The flight home wasn't fun.
I would like to defend myself. Well, Coach Anthony Iaposi was there, which was fantastic. Great to see Post. He was breaking it down the dance floor after a knee replacement, so we appreciate that. And then
just a gem, one of the best. Huge fan. Because you, me, and him sat next to each other at dinner and just want to give a shout out. One of the best.
He's fantastic. I just want to defend myself with the Foley thing. So our good friend of the pod, Foles, he had a ton of hair and a mustache. And then I didn't realize he's like a very large human. I didn't realize how large he was. And then I saw him in the lobby of the hotel. And I was like, this dude plays baseball. I know this guy plays baseball. He's just like a massive. And then it kind of clicked after he said hi. I was like, oh, it's Foley. But he was a haircut. He had no long hair, short hair, and he had a full beard. All right.
Yes.
And so it was a little bit of a different look. And I didn't recognize him at first, but we had a great weekend after that.
He was very understanding too. He literally pulls out like his ID. He goes, I mean, look, like this is what I used to look like. He's like, I get it. He's like, did it hurt? Maybe. But like, I get why he didn't recognize me at first.
And you looked like a complete different person.
I'd like to also go back, and this is just going to call out Zack for being a bad friend. Friday, he said to me and Scott, and I told you this, Ian, when you got there, he said, I wonder if Ian will stay longer than like 5 minutes at the welcome party. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like Ian's fun. Like Ian can't wait. Like and Julie's a lot of fun. So I'm like, there's no way Julie's letting him leave after 5 minutes. So like, they're going to be here. And you were like the last one up. You were up with us until 1 a.m. And you were like, I'll stay up as late as you guys want. And I was like, I think it's time.
Yeah.
And he tried to call you out.
I wasn't ready to go to bed. You guys were all ready to go to bed. I was the last one up, and I'll just say, at that Saturday night after the wedding, I wasn't going to bed until Zach went to bed.
No, but I was very happy Saturday when he and Fallon said they were going to bed. I was like, I am so tired. It was like 1:30, and I was like, I am on fumes here, but I will not go to bed before them.
Well, you were running like offensive line drills for a couple hours there. So, you were doing a good job protecting the blind side, but it definitely wore you down a little bit.
I mean, yeah, that's my thing. I don't know when that became my thing, but all of a sudden, I think it started at Ian's wedding. I was running up and down like the hallway at your wedding, Ian, yelling out like, here we go. And then like 52's the mic. And I'm doing that in front of like Rizzo and everyone. So you knew I was doing it at Zach's wedding because I just didn't care.
Yeah, you were doing it in front of like grandparents. I was like, let's keep this corralled so we don't run anyone over here and cause an incident at the short Bavino wedding. But, it all worked out.
Anyone can get the hands if you try to rush my quarterback. I don't care how old you are.
Good point. We had a bad travel day yesterday. Flying back, drove to Newark from Connecticut to get back to Austin, which was fine. But then got to the airport early so that we didn't mess that up. Had a 1:00 flight. Get on the plane. They said there's an issue with the lavatory. We're gonna have somebody come and fix that. 20 minutes later, still trying to figure out the lavatory. Another 10 after that. It's like, hey, you're going to want to get off this plane. We're going to deplane this thing. We're going to figure it out. So about 3.5 hours later, after they sourced us a new plane, we flew to Austin, got back around like 9:00. So a little bit of a grinder of a travel day yesterday.
That's tough. That's not nearly as bad as mine. Or that's way worse than mine. I woke up Sunday. My flight was originally at 1:33, connected in like Charlotte or whatever. I get a notification that it's delayed by 2 hours, which means I would have missed my connecting flight. My eyes I'm not even open yet. My eyes aren't even open. My throat's as dry as it gets. I'm going to puke. Like I felt horrendous. And I'm sitting there looking at my phone like, yeah, that flight looks all right. Had to schedule like the only flights they had was either 11:30 or like midnight. Like I'd get home at midnight. So I had to, this was like 9:45 and I'm scrambling. So I get out of bed. I start packing. Like I had nothing packed, had to shower, had to scramble to get to the airport, get there like as I'm boarding. It all worked out, but I was like, this is not what I needed today. I can't tell that story. I can't
tell it. Just tell it. We'll cut it.
I felt so bad. I was trying to make myself throw up Sunday morning. I was fingers in the mouth trying to make myself puke before I went to the airport. Nothing. So there it is. There it is.
Keep it in. Keep it in.
Keep it in, Tom. We had fun. It was a very, very fun weekend. I feel like those weekends always go too fast. So I was sad when it was over, but it was great to see everyone. Like we saw a ton of people we all knew. So fun times, very fun times.
Fun times. And shout out to Fallon for playing the whole thing and Zach for showing up.
Literally. Oh, that was the last thing I was going to say. I get there Friday. I see Fallon running around like in the lobby of the hotel, like back and forth, like with a bellhop here, like a cart here. And I'm like, do you need help? And she's like, no, it's okay. And like, I call Zach. Zach was nowhere to be seen. So I call him and I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm driving to the hotel. I was like, I've just seen Fallon running around doing like 3 things. He goes, do you think I'm not doing anything? I'm bringing a bunch of stuff right now. And I was like, I'm in trouble before the weekend even starts. So then when Zach got there, I felt bad. So I helped him carry a bunch of stuff because I was like, sorry, I didn't mean to fire you up.
No, that's how you get your groomsman credit right there.
Yeah, exactly. And then me and Scotty ran some errands for him. It was a good time. Me and Scott and Zach also, I feel like, sorry, I have a million stories. Last one. Me, Scott, and Zach went outside in the parking lot and just played catch with the football and then played catch with the baseball for like 45 minutes Friday. Guests are like arriving, pulling into the hotel. There's the groom running routes in the parking lot while Fallon's like inside stressing, getting ready.
And
And we're
that's how Scotty got his work in, right? You threw with him.
And then he kept wanting to throw me sliders. I was like, Scott, I can't see. The lighting's not good. I haven't caught a baseball in forever. Your slider's gross. Okay. It's gross. And he threw me like 2. I was like, okay, can we be done? And they were good.
Yeah. It's like going to hit you in the knee. It actually reminds me of when you would throw like your flat grounds to me at the compound.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to try to catch this. Stop.
Well, and you're lucky I didn't have any good off speed. Like Scott has a gross slider from sidearm. Like I was like, I don't want to do this. Like I don't need a welt on my kneecap going into this wedding.
That wouldn't be good for the dance moves.
No.
Or the blocking. Would have really helped the 3-point stance he was getting. It would have been tough.
My quarterback would have been toast.
So we're going to bring it back to baseball.
Shout out to Bev and Zach. We love them both. Great wedding.
And we miss Zack. I'll probably never hear that, but it's okay.
No, he said he's excited to listen. I texted him and he said, I'm excited to listen. I was like, there's no way you're listening.
I don't believe him. We're going to go over, I don't know if we want to go over all the free agents or just the guys that haven't signed, but this is kind of the time in the off season where there's some of the top guys have signed, some haven't. We got a couple little dates here that I think things will start to break around. So let's just get into it. Brought to you by Bruce Bolt. BruceBolt.us. Go to BruceBolt.us for all your baseball needs, all your batting gloves. We got My Signature Series, the elephant print, the white, the baby blue. Go check them out. Elbow guards, arm sleeves, whatever you need for this upcoming season, BruceBolt.us. There's a couple big things here. So arbitration is coming up this week. I believe it's the 9th. Don't quote me on that. Maybe we can have a research team.
Whatever Thursday is. Yes, the 9th. Sorry.
The 9th?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the arbitration date. And the reason why that's important is because this is going to set some budgets for teams. Now, it's not going to change like worldly for many teams, but there are some numbers, some guys in ARB 2 and ARB 3 that if it goes one way or the other, it'll kind of free up $1 million here, $1 million there for certain teams. So I think that could be holding up a little bit of some of these deals if a team has a couple million more bucks to spend, and especially the reliever market when it comes to teams being able to allocate a little bit more dollars to relievers or wanting to wait to see. So you have that date coming up, and then we have Sasaki's date. So Sasaki has to sign by like Jan 15, right?
He has to sign by then, right? That's what you said.
I believe so. I believe the window opens January 15th, and then he has to sign by the 23rd because that's the end of his posting. So you can't sign an international free agent until the 15th, but he has to sign by the 23rd because he got posted December 23rd, I think. So that's like by when the posting ends. Posting, just so people who may not know what that term means, that's when the Japanese teams, and Ian, maybe you could even explain this better than I can. My understanding of it is that's when the Japanese teams put basically a player up for the American market, and then teams can bid for the right to negotiate with the player. So there's usually a fee involved in that. So you're also not just paying the player, but you're also you're compensating the team from Japan so that you have the ability to negotiate with that player so they can get a contract done.
That is correct. And you are right. It is the 15th to the 23rd. So I think we would all assume that it's going to be in the beginning of that window with all the meetings that he's already had.
Did you guys see? I thought this was interesting. He said he didn't want any players at the first round of his meetings. He just wanted to meet with staff, which I thought, I mean, it makes sense, but I thought it was interesting.
I saw that. I'm curious, like, do you think it has to do with, like, obviously Cubs and Dodgers, like guys that have Japanese players of like, I don't need like Yamamoto and Shohei or like Shota there. Like he just wants to see outside of them how he'd enjoy it.
It's hard to speculate, but I think one of the things, because there's so much respect there for the guys that are older veteran players that have come to America, that it would probably be pretty hard if they sat in the room to then like say no to those guys. And like that influence to say like, no, I don't want to come play for your team. I'm sure he's talking to a lot of those guys. I know they've all played on Team Japan together and know him well. And I'm sure he's asking questions, but probably hard with those guys in the room for him to have like an honest evaluation. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, and it is hard to speculate, but I could see that being not wanting to be disrespectful to any of those guys if they're coming in and taking their time to come to a meeting.
Well, and like you said, like, I'm sure he's talking to like the guys in LA, the guys in Chicago of like, how is it moving over there from Japan? Like, it's a totally different world for him. So he's like, what is it like? Like, is it easy to do? So he doesn't really need them in there for that. He probably just wants to hear more about like what the team thinks and their plan going forward.
Yeah. And how they would utilize him.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interest, you got the Angels, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Cubs. where he fits into different rotations and where he gets the opportunity in different rotations, and like if a team's going to go to a 6-man or a 5-man and kind of how that works. But I think there's a lot of teams that are waiting to see what he does before they move on to a Flaherty type starter that's going to be a shorter term, obviously more dollars. And I the thing about Sasaki that I think everybody needs to understand is this guy is coming over like Ohtani did, and it's going to be a couple to $2 to $5 million signing bonus, and then you get him through the normal system. So he's under the league minimum for 3 years, and then he goes through the arbitration process for 3 years. So you get him for 6 years of control for a guy that is already has elite stuff. Yeah, he's really young, but he's played professionally. So you're hoping that you get the impact of what would be a free agent signing for way, way cheaper.
How does that work? Like, because it's not every guy that comes over has that same contract.
I was really just about to answer this question, Dakota. It's because, and Ian, you can correct me if anything I say is wrong, but it's because I believe he's under the age of 25, so he's still considered like the same way as if you signed, Robinson Cano out of the Dominican Republic, or you signed anyone who was a, Jose Altuve out of Venezuela. Like he's the same as just any international free agent signing under the age of 25. Once you hit over 25, then there's a whole other, then you can just sign as like a normal free agent. And so it's a little bit different of a system. But the fact that he's coming so young, he's only 23. He's coming off 2 incredible seasons in Japan. And as you said, Ian, and the fact that you're going to be able to get him on a cost-controlled contract that's going to be favorable to a team and have that long-term flexibility with him. He's right now not just like a huge get, but he's the kind of guy that if it goes the right way, could change the direction of your franchise.
Why would he come before 25 then? Like, I don't know if there's a real answer to that or not, but like, you know what I mean? Like if he's 23, like why not wait 2 years, come over and get like these huge contract offers instead of coming over, waiting 6 years, 3. I mean, obviously he'll get to arbitration and make a little more, but like he's going to make $750 for 3 years versus I'd imagine he makes more than that in Japan. So like, why not wait 2 years and then come over?
It is interesting because we just saw Yamamoto do it, right? Like we just saw Yamamoto come over at 26 years old and make $300 million. So you kind of wonder if you just wait 3 more years, you get that big payday. But I think his agent said something too about just wanting to play at the highest level and wanting to be over here. And obviously you see the way that Ohtani's done it too. It's like, that's not a bad blueprint. Like,
I think what makes it tough, like in those negotiations, is it's not a money thing. Like you said, Ian, like there's a signing bonus. Is there like a signing bonus cap or no? Like, can a team be like, hey, we'll give you $100 million signing bonus?
No. So the cap is whatever each team has for international bonus money.
Oh, that's right.
So the max amount that a team would have is like $5.5-6 million bucks. And like, I don't think these teams, so kind of what I've been reading, I don't think these teams are just going to only allocate it to him either. Like there's like I think the Dodgers and the Padres maybe only have like $1.5 million left. So I don't know that he's going to get like $5.5 million signing bonus from any of these teams unless they decide to forego other players because they can get him. I think the Cubs are in a similar situation where maybe they have $2.5 million left. So I don't know that unless they decide to not sign other players because he's that good. That's a possibility, and that would not be determined until kind of that January 15th date, but it's interesting.
This could be a crazy question, but like how like John Singleton, for example, like never got to ARB, got a contract extension in the big leagues, whatever. Can he do that like legally? Like, hey, sign here right now, and like after this season, we'll give you an 8-year, whatever $1 million contract.
I don't think a team would pre-negotiate it like that.
But I mean, maybe big brain moves right there.
Maybe you're a step ahead.
Maybe I'm on to something. I don't know. Cubbies.
I mean, I know if he's good, teams would want that, that control. But when it's that cheap, when you have him for like Ohtani, it's the same thing. Like when you have him for just league minimum, it's just such an advantage. And so back to the conversation about the free agents, I think that's holding up a lot of teams in signing some of these, the Nick Pivetta or Jack Flaherty type of guys that are proven good starting pitchers, but they're going to cost 15 to 20 million bucks a year for 1, 2, 3 years. If a team has an opportunity to get Sasaki, then they don't have to do that. And then you also have Bregman, you have Santander, you have Alonso out there, and then the whole reliever market hasn't fallen yet.
Last thing for Sasaki, can't you trade for like international? Weren't like the Yankees doing that before Yamamoto? I think like trading for international bonus pool money just so like you'd have more to offer.
You can, yeah.
Okay.
And that's a decent way if we see a team all of a sudden, the Dodgers or one of these teams all of a sudden trade 3 prospects for $3.5 million in international bonus pool money. We know likely where he's heading because that would be a sign.
But didn't the Yankees do that for Yamamoto, or am I wrong?
Listen, we don't have to talk about the Yankees failed.
I was going to say, didn't they do that and then they didn't get him?
Well, Yamamoto wouldn't have been in that international because he was a pure free agent.
Maybe not Yamamoto. Maybe it
would have been
else,
Ohtani.
I swear they did that for someone and didn't get him. And
I believe in 2017 they were trying to clear some money to get Ohtani.
Sorry, Tom. Didn't mean to open up old wounds.
Listen, he wasn't coming to the East Coast. He's just on the East Coast. Too far.
Fine. You got Bellinger. We're fine. We're fine.
Yeah, who wants Shohei anyway? It's not like he's the best baseball player in the history of the sport. That's fine.
Guy hasn't thrown in a year and a half. It stinks.
Football fans, it is playoff time, and we've got some exciting games to look forward to, and you can get in on all the playoff action right now with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they are offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5, and that's when you use the promo code COMPOUND. $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use code COMPOUND, bet just $5 on any wager, and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code COMPOUND only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
I am very curious, Ian. You said his name. I think for some reason my biggest intrigue, if you will, is where will Bregman sign? I think he's a big chip to fall that like could help a ton of teams. And I don't feel like there's like 1 or 2 teams that really are like hot on him. Like I feel like I hear a different team every other day on like who's interested in Bregman.
I think we've heard some Red Sox rumblings. You just don't know who's going to put up that money, but it's got to be coming soon, and that's like, or some of these teams kind of not sure if they want to go infield or outfield, but there's still some money out there to spend, Santander, Alonso, and Bregman's career numbers. You look at him like it's a really, really good player that's just like hanging out right now.
I mean, so is Pete Alonso. Like there's some big names.
I mean, the thing to know with both of those guys is that they're both Scott Boras guys, and Scott Boras has shown us that he is going to be patient. It's interesting to see, like, obviously Scott Boras negotiated the Juan Soto deal, so his offseason is basically a success on that alone, and that he's been unbelievably great for those tier 1, 4-star A guys. Like, if you're the top guy, it's good to have Scott Boras. But we've seen now, the last couple of years with some of his, like, in that second tier of guys, they've struggled to get contracts. He famously got fired by Jordan Montgomery after he negotiated that contract that didn't work. And Bregman and Alonso are not obviously Juan Soto. No disrespect to them. They're incredible players, but they're much closer to a Jordan Montgomery than they are to a Juan Soto. And it is interesting to see what happens with them because he's been proven to be very patient, but that strategy has been reaping less and less benefits over the last couple of years. And Bregman's such a fascinating guy. I really want the Yankees to get him. That's the guy that I've been hoping the Yankees get.
Ian, obviously you don't know like for sure on each guy, but how many of like, obviously a ton of guys have Scott Boras. How many, and there's other agents within his agency, how many guys do you think like he's actually the one taking these phone calls? Like obviously for Soto, Bregman, like he's in those calls, he's in those meetings, but like as you get like a little lower down the line, how much of it is kind of like they have a secondary agent or like someone under Boras doing the negotiating, and then like they'll bring in Boras if they kind of need him?
I think he's kind of the guy.
You think so? Like for at least all big leaguers, obviously.
Yeah. I don't know. I think other guys do the arbitration stuff, but I think when it comes to negotiating free agent contracts, I think he's the guy.
That's got to be so much to like keep track of like, all right, like Bregman, we want this. Okay. Like if we go over here, Soto wants this, and we're talking to these teams, like that's crazy.
The documentary I've wanted for so long is like the Scott Boras, or like if you could get like unfettered access and like you could actually film the meetings and the phone calls they're having, you'd have to probably sit on it for like 10 or 15 years. You have to like, we're not going to release this until everything's cooled off and simmered. But like I was even watching today, Schefter was on ESPN and he was getting the phone calls and they like muted him and then just kept him on screen as he was on the phone call on mute. Can you imagine what Scott Boras's phone calls must be like?
Oh,
The guy must just be on the phone 24/7. He must have someone that's like whole job is just like screening phone calls to determine who actually gets to the level of actually getting to talk.
Yes, that's kind of what I mean, Tom, of like, if he's not talking to like Brian Cashman, like he's not talking. Like it's like his like whatever his other agents doing the talking. If it's not like the big boys at the table, he's like, what am I doing? Like, get Brian Cashman on the phone. I'm not talking to the assistant GM. Like,
No, yeah.
I need to get the deal done.
I think Scott Boras is only talking to a general manager, a team president, or
like an owner,
the actual owner. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that 100%.
I want to talk about the reliever market because this one's really interesting to me. So you have Tanner Scott, top of the food chain there. Jeff Hoffman, who's been, look at his numbers over the last 2 years, absolutely lights out. There's some word that he's looking for the Clay Holmes, maybe going back to starting type of thing. Like Clay Holmes got like a 3 for 38 or something.
Yeah, 3 for 38 with an opt out. I believe after the second year.
You think Tom doesn't know the Clay Holmes deal? Come on now.
It's his favorite deal of the year.
Yeah.
I printed it up in my house and put it on the fridge like when the kid does artwork. You're like, good job.
But then Kenley hasn't signed. Kirby Yates. Look at Kirby Yates' numbers from last year.
Yeah.
That he had a ridiculous year. I mean, there's some legit back end talent.
It's a lot of guys that maybe also didn't have the best year ever last year, but like have the pedigree that they've done it. Like Paul Sewald's been a closer. Craig Kimbrell's still out there. David Robertson's still out there. He's 40, but like a lot of big names still out there that can get outs late in games for a team.
Kenley, Jeff Hoffman last year. Okay. He had in 2023, he had a 2.41. Last year, he had a 2.17 with 66 innings, 10 saves. Kirby Yates he's through 61 innings. He had 85 punch-outs in 61 innings with a 1.17.
He's quietly like had one of the better careers that's like never talked about.
Dude, I mean, he's thrown for 10 years. He was an all-star last year, but he's thrown for 10 years and he has a career 3.17. You know, he was absolutely lights out in 2019, 2018, and then kind of 2020, 2021, he was hurt. 2022, he's coming off the injury. And then the last 2 years, he had a 3.28 and a 1.17. Like 60 innings both times. Like Kenley did last year too. Like those are guys that are all kind of 7th, 8th. And, you know, then you have Scott, Hoffman, they're kind of, and Yates who've done some 9th inning stuff. But talk about guys that like really can shore up the back end of a bullpen, the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. And like whoever you have on your roster right now can get bumped down one, or it just gives you more depth. Like those are real big pieces. It'll just be interesting to see what teams go after them and like how much money those guys are demanding. Because you're talking about 38, 30, 37, 38, 39, 40-year-old in David Robertson type of like, is it $3 million? Is it $5 million? Is it $8 million? Like where does that all fall?
And we talk about it a lot with MLB contracts and how late it takes you to become a free agent. Even more so for relievers because they typically debut even older and older. So like it makes sense that all these guys are mid 30s, late 30s, and it's like they can still get outs. They're just kind of like looking for a 1 or 2 year deal. And to the contract thing of like how much money, I feel like relievers are always the last domino to fall because it's like, all right, let's get our big boys and then we'll kind of see how much do we have left? How much do we want to spend? Like, what do we need? Do we need a lefty? Do we need a late inning guy? Obviously the big names are still always going to get their money, but like these older guys that are kind of looking for like a 1 year, 2 year deal, teams are kind of waiting to see how much do we want to spend on this guy and how much do we want to save to try to go get Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, whoever it may be.
It's also been interesting to see the rise of the teams like the A's signed Trevor May a couple of years ago, the Aroldis Chapman deal last year of like guys going, you know what, I'm going to go take the 5 or 6 million that's guaranteed right now. And I'll go put myself in a team that maybe does not look like a contender right now on paper. And if they don't suddenly turn into a contender, I know I'm probably getting traded in July, but I'll take the security of having that money and knowing that, hey, I'll probably end up on a contender anyway, because if I'm one of the best arms in the game and teams are looking for, help, like I'm going to get moved anyway. So the reliever market is so fascinating to me. Even like the Devin Williams trade for the Yankees, that was what they gave up in the return for that. Like to get a guy like Devin Williams, who's going to be one of the best relievers in baseball and has been, it's it's a very interesting, as you said, Dakota. It's really the last domino always to fall, but we all know how important bullpens are, and it's interesting that it seems more and more like GMs and front offices are going, yeah, we can put that together though. Like we can find two guys during the season that will be able to
Yes.
change one pitch, and we'll get them into our lab, and we'll Luke Weaver them. And it's like that's not easy to do. I think people forget sometimes, and like you guys know, and I think this is the one thing that I get so frustrated with as a fan having been around enough clubhouses, people forget that these are real human beings and that they're not just names on a spreadsheet. And like having a bullpen group, I mean, Dakota, you can speak about this much better than I can. Like having a group that knows it's going to be together and knows, hey, more or less, it's this group of 5 to 6 guys with, maybe a couple other pieces on the periphery moving in and out. It seems like so many teams right now are like, we have 2 guys, we'll find 2 more during the season and we'll make it work. And like that's the strategy that's being approached right now. And it's very interesting.
Bullpens are just so volatile. Like you said, you have your 3-4 guys, sometimes 5 guys that you're like, these are going to be here all year. Like health aside, like if they're healthy, they're going to be up here all year. But then there's always like 3 to 4 guys that it's kind of a shuttle between like, all right, this guy in AAA is throwing pretty good. This guy in the big leagues is struggling. Like we'll kind of switch him out. So I think the one that shocks me the most is Tanner Scott, just because he's so dominant. Like he's an 8th, 9th inning guy for a lot of teams, and he's a lefty and he's gross. So like he's the one where I'm like, he's gonna get a good amount of money. I think it's one where like he's probably got offers out there, but it's not the number he wants. So I'm very curious to see where he ends up because he can be dominant. I would love to see him be a Cubby. Love. And Ian would love that because then he wouldn't have to face it.
Well, I want to touch on one thing you said, Tom, which was the kind of teams that might not be competing and then signing some of these guys. And it's a pretty interesting trend in the last couple of years because the relievers are most valuable at the trade deadline. Like you saw what Devin Williams, what the return was for Devin Williams, and maybe that the infield prospect is going to be great for them. But you look at trading Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs in 2016, like a guy like Gleyber Torres in that trade. When you're trading a big bullpen arm late in the year, when we traded Kimbrel, we got back Cody, who was a right-handed up-and-coming controllable reliever, plus Nick Madrigal, who was the top 5 pick in the draft. And when you trade guys in the middle of the season, it's when you get like a ton of value for these relievers. So if you're a smaller market, if you're a team that says, hey, we have $5 million to spend or $8 million to spend, let's go get a reliever. If we're good, great. If we're not, we only have to pay half the contract or 2/3 of the contract because we're going to trade him, and then we're going to get something back for that guy. It's a way to acquire more talent, and you're not even paying the full number on the contract. So it's a pretty interesting strategy. And so that's when you kind of look down the list and see some of these names. It's like how many of these guys are going to end up on teams that are maybe going to compete, maybe not, and then might be used as a trade chip later on. Like it's pretty smart for some of these smaller markets that end up, being able to acquire talent in the middle of the season that way.
It's like the Rich Hill deal a couple of years ago with the Pirates of like he signed there and it was like he's signing there to kind of get traded. Like no knock on the Pirates at all, but like going into that season, it was one of like he's there, like he's hopefully going to throw well, and then at the deadline, the Pirates are like, we'll be able to get a couple prospects for this guy. Like this will be a great move for us at the end of the day.
And it's super interesting because it's like also then it's like Rich Hill gets like the market value that at least closer to the market value he's hoping for, right? Because they're willing to give him maybe more than a contender was because they know that they're going to get the return back. So it's like it's valuable for both sides. It is very interesting. But the weird part is you said, Ian, and I think the reason that I'm like, it's bizarre to me, the lack of interest sometimes in the relievers is, as you said, is it flips during the season. During the free agency, relievers are the last people to go, kind of the last thing you think about. But then once your season happens and you remember, oh, hey, we need a guy to pitch the 7th inning tomorrow, and we're down a couple of guys, all of a sudden now you're willing to trade your top prospect to get a reliever when it's like you could have probably just paid that guy $2 million more in January and you wouldn't have to go up anything for it. So there is like a weird dichotomy of like the GMs forget what July's like and they don't remember that in January when they're signing the guys.
Well, didn't Cole Reagans come over in the Chapman trade from the Royals to the Rangers?
Believe so.
I'm pretty sure Reagans was in that trade, and they traded him at the deadline, and they actually went the Rangers kind of jumped the deadline to go get Chapman. from the Royals when he was throwing 104
Yes.
with the Royals after signing that deal. The
Yep.
Royals end up finishing like basically in last place, not a contender. They trade Chapman to the Rangers,
Mhm.
and the Rangers get back Reagans, and then he is who he is. It's like in the offseason, that would never happen, ever.
Never.
But that's a great move for the Royals, who paid Chapman like $4 million to come pitch for them that year, and then they get 6 years of control or 5 years control of Cole Reagans. Like, come on, it's unbelievable. And then that changes their rotation. But the other point I want to make about relievers really quick is just, Dakota, you know this. When you have a group of relievers that you know is going to shut down a game and shorten a game to 6-7 innings, what it does for the offensive group to be able to go out there and say, we have a 1-run lead in the sixth. I know our bullpen's not giving it up. It gives us the freedom to just go add on, and we're not going to lose the lead, so we're not going to end up having to face their seventh, eighth inning guys. So it lets us face as an offensive group, when you keep building on and you keep, all right, now we're up 2 runs in the seventh, 3 runs in the eighth. Now I don't have to face their eighth inning guy. I don't have to face their closer. That's why the Dodgers every year are so good, or have been for so long, because they have a lead and then they just build on that lead, and they don't have to face the other team's back end guys more frequently. It's like they're unsung heroes in the sense of what they do to help the offense go out there, not only with peace of mind, but with being able to build leads and not have to face the other team's back end. Like it completely changes the dynamic.
I mean, look at the Royals in 2014,
14,
when they
15,
had Herrera, Wade Davis, and Greg Holland. Like, if the starter goes 5+, those 3 are shutting down the last 3+ innings. Like, that has to be so comfortable. One, like you said, from the offensive side of, hey, if we can have the lead after the 5th inning, we're in a really good spot. And the starting pitcher side of, like, I just need to give us 5 really good innings, or like 5 good innings, not even really good. Like, if you throw 5 innings of 1-run ball, obviously easier said than done. But if you can do that, it's like, we got 3 horses behind me that are going to shut it down and win us a baseball game.
And the inverse of that, we've all been you guys have been around the clubhouses when you don't have that, and you have the bullpen that's shaky. And there's nothing that's worse for a team than a team that has a shaky bullpen. Because you watch it, like you blow a couple games in like a week, and especially like you're on a road trip, whatever, you're battling, you're grinding to stay around 500, and you drop 2 out of 3, and you have the lead in the 8th inning in both those games. What that does to the team morale, it's hard to describe. Like it changes the way you play that next, even if you try not to let it affect you, it changes the way you play the next day a little bit. Because it's like, how many the game's never done. Feels like the game's never, no leads ever secure. It's kind of like going out with your friend when he's at like the end of a relationship, and you can see it's the end of the relationship and he can't, and you're like, just hope we go out and we all have a nice time and nobody gets in any fights. But with that couple, you're like, we're rolling the dice a little bit, and at any moment here it could set off. And now,
I mean,
that's what's having a bad bullpen's like. You're like, at any moment it could just 2-run homer. Oh no, now we're back in the spot.
Think of the Yankees, like, I think late 90s, early 2000s, when it was like Tom Gordon and Mariano. It's like, this game's over. Like, they're not going to score. Like, that is such a like comfortable feeling as like a team and a fan of like, we have our guys and it's over. Like, we win the game.
Yeah, and there's David. Then it was David Robertson and Mariano. Like, they always did a good job. Obviously, Mariano sat at the back end of that bullpen forever, but they did a good job in the 7th and 8th in front of him too. And not only with all the boppers that they had in the lineup, but you knew that once you got to the 8th or 9th inning, like, that game was over.
I mean, that was why Mariano was my favorite player to watch as a kid. Like, you knew what he was going to do, right? Everyone in the world knew what he was going to come and do. He's going to throw a cutter right up and in on you. And the guy knew it was coming. He knew it was coming, and it didn't matter. And it was also the efficiency with which he worked. There's something about a great closer that when they're just like, bang, get the ball, 1 pitch, ground ball out, bang, right, get it back, first pitch strike, up, another ground ball out. Now it's 2 outs and 3 pitches, and the other team's just, it's over. You feel it.
He is still like, I've learned a lot about the pitching side. It is still like a mystery to me of like, it was a great pitch, but I'm like, they know it's coming every time. I don't get it. Like, Ian, you could speak on it more. Like, hitting's obviously very hard, but I'm like, you know what it's going to do. It's gross every time, but like, it's coming. I'm telling you, cutter's coming.
The only thing I can relate it to is facing Kenley early in my career.
Yeah.
And we had the playoffs in 17 and we're playing them in the NLCS. And then I was very fortunate to get to pinch hit against Kenley in the ninth a couple times in that series, which was a lot of fun. And like I know what pitch he's gonna throw. It was before he was throwing the two seam. It was before he was really throwing the slider. He was just throwing cutters. It's like I know what he's gonna do. I know I just can't hit it. It's like I just swing and I miss every time. And the one time that I like blew my bat into 1,000 pieces and put it in play, I was like, nice. It's like, well, you're out.
He's someone where I think like Tommy Edman did it. Would you consider just like, obviously he has a two seam now, but like, would you consider being like, I should hit righty? Like, I don't have a chance lefty against this cutter. Like,
Well,
that's almost one of like, maybe I go up there right. I know it's running away from you then, but it's like, at least it's not shattering my bat when I try to swing.
I was trying to think of what year it is. I might be able to find it, but there's in 17, I faced him a bunch in that playoff run. And then I finally faced him again in 18. So in 17 in the playoffs, or I faced him during the season, punch me out. In the playoffs, punch out, punch out. And then I faced him in June, grounded out. Good for me.
Yes,
I think he shattered my bat into 1,000 pieces.
I did it. I got him play.
And then I got him like a week later, and I got a single, a broken bat single to right.
And you're like, I see this guy so well.
And I was
dialed.
now I got him. I was like, I like choked up. I like tried to swing over it, and like I felt like I hit a homer, and he still broke my bat, and I kind of hit like a nice soft single into right, and I was like, got him, totally got him.
That's incredible.
I got to appreciate Ian for a second. Not many guys are willing to go look up their stats to go tell you how bad they are against somebody. And Ian immediately was like, "Let me just get on here and just run you through how much I was dominated by him."
He's one of the best pitchers to ever do it.
Yeah.
He's one of the best pitchers to ever do it. And then,
Still
but there's a hilarious. I've talked about this before, but there's a hilarious clip when he was in Atlanta, and this is when he first started throwing the sinker, and he threw me a 1-0 sinker that I came out of the cutter window, so that would be like middle away for me, and I'm like, there it is. Cutter, it's coming right towards the middle. I swung at it. It was in the other batter's box. It went the other way, and it was in the right-handed batter's box, like dead in the middle of the right-handed batter's box, and I swung at it and was like, looked up at the board and was like, what pitch was that?
I'm done. He's got
like
me.
this. What is that pitch?
Another guy I wanted to touch on was Jurickson Profar, coming off a year where he hit 280, 24 homers, 85 ribbies, OPS plus of 134. I think the interesting part is the utility factor. If he can play second base, shortstop, outfield, like he's a guy that I think like when it comes down to it is going to get a pretty good contract and would help a ton of teams just with like his versatility.
And he's interesting too because he's only 31.
Mm-hmm.
He will be turning 32, so he'll be in his age 32 season. He's been really good, and especially really good in San Diego, and probably wants to go back there. But San Diego doesn't really want to spend. They looks like they're trying to dump a little bit. So it's like, where does he end up? And is he waiting to try to go back there? What's the team going to be willing to pay him?
Switch hitter that plays multiple positions, like that's super useful. I feel like hits in the top of the order for like the Padres, who are a really good team. Like, I don't know.
Former number 1 overall prospect in baseball too. So there's definitely a pedigree there. There's the stats don't really back up the track record as much as maybe you would hope, but he signed last year for 1 year, $1 million. It'll be very interesting to see what he gets this year, because it is like he went in a show me deal, but he showed it. So now, as you said, like, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the Padres are a fit, even though that would make sense for both sides if the number could make sense. So we'll have to see. He's one I'm very interested to watch.
I think that is tough, like you said, Tom, of like his resume isn't there. Like he doesn't have like the year after year success, but he's coming off of like a prove it deal, like you said, he proved it. Like he went out there, he dominated, and like he could be worth a lot of money to somebody. And
he deserves his bite at the apple. Like he's been around for a long time now. He's made $35 million in his career. Like he deserves that big deal that is like for what he was able to do last year, and hopefully somebody's willing to pay him that.
For sure.
You have something else, Tom?
I was going to say, like, I feel like he's been kind of mid for most of his career, and I would take $35 million for being pretty mid for most of my career. But, hey, that's just, I know we're a pro player pod, so I don't want to get negative. When you said he's only made 35 million, I was like, all I was thinking was Dakota and I were like, 35 mil is pretty good. Like,
hey, it could be 3.5 million. I'd say, yes, please.
Yes, please. Yes, sir. Sign me up for that.
Pod. Let's get the people.
That's the reason I didn't say it. I wasn't going to say it. You asked me to say it, so then I had no choice.
No, I like it, Tom. I like it.
Let's get the people who Sloan screen time. Sloan is the world's leading manufacturer of commercial plumbing systems. The company is at the forefront of the green building movement and provides smart, sustainable, and hygienic restroom solutions by manufacturing water-efficient products, including flush-o-meters, faucets, sink systems, soap dispensers, and fixtures for commercial, industrial, and institutional markets worldwide. To learn more, visit sloan.com. Tell me your screen times.
5 hours, 34 minutes. I feel pretty good about that one. It won't beat Ian, but I feel okay with it. I think Tom's got me beat too. Look at him. He likes it.
457. I was also smiling because I was thinking about, you just got to tell us what yesterday's was. Doesn't count. We just want to know for like the tracking.
I don't think it was that crazy. Even though I was traveling, I was so tired. Like I just went on the plane and didn't move for like, I didn't even like watch Netflix. I just didn't move. I was a corpse. I was an absolute corpse all day yesterday. One thing I will say is during Sloan screen time, Lions, 1 seed, baby. First round bye. I was tired all day. Game time started. I planned to watch game in bed. Game starts. Lions punt opening drive. I said, what am I doing? Went downstairs, surround sound, had a little glass of whiskey. Probably shouldn't say that. Said it anyway. Glass of Parse rum. I had a glass of Parse rum. Cut the first part, Tom. And Lions won. It was huge, but the time was only 7:58. Really not that bad for a travel day.
Not that bad at all. I had 159 today. 159. I'm not a phone guy. I stay off my screen.
Dakota, are you going to point this out too? He's had 59 like 2 of the last 3 times we've done it, where it seems to be suspicious that it's always 259 or 159. I don't know.
That's a great. What was yours Sunday, Ian? You have to tell us because it is a crazy discrepancy from today.
9:15.
Oh my! See, that's more like that's more human. You're more human.
A lot of time delayed in the airport. There was a 9:15 for me on Sunday. I'm not afraid to admit it, but 1:59 today. I feel really good about that.
That is really good. Tip the cap. Sometimes, gotta tip the cap.
That's episode 240 of the Compound Podcast presented by Parse Rum. Go to Benny's, get your Parse. We will see you next week.